The teen sex comedy was a popular film genre that began in the late 1970s and continued throughout the 1980s. While not focusing primarily on sex, Animal House was certainly a pioneer and led the way to films where sex was certainly the main draw, like Hots and The Hollywood Knights, eventually culminating in quintessential 1980s teen sex comedies like Porky's and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Incidentally, The Hollywood Knights was the first time I ever saw naked breasts in a movie, as an aunt I had at the time was surprisingly dismissive of exposing an 8-year-old to nudity on HBO. Movie studios always recognize a trend and work to immediately exploit it before the craze dies down, then continue to exploit it further until everyone is sick of it, before waiting a few years for a reboot to start everything up again. Thus, while at the time known for producing family-friendly films and long before their complete takeover of Hollywood, Disney decided they wanted a piece of the teen sex comedy pie. But being Disney, there couldn't be any sex in it. Which is how you end up with a film like 1980's Midnight Madness, distributed by Buena Vista Pictures, which was what Disney called themselves when they didn't want people to realize a film marketed toward adults was being produced by the same company that gave you the Apple Dumpling Gang. The Black Hole was famously known as the first Disney-produced live-action film to receive a PG rating. Well, Midnight Madness was the second. Had the film been released a few years later, it's possible it would have received a PG-13. It's also possible that the raunchiness might have been turned up slightly to guarantee that rating. Instead, Midnight Madness was produced during a time when a PG film could be as tame as E.T. or as violent as Raiders of the Lost Ark. The film begins with an opening credits montage of two adorably sexy girls, Candy and Sunshine, roller skating through a college campus, or clearly walking but pretending to skate, handing out colored envelopes to various cliches: the football quarterback, the nerd, the uptight sorority head, and the spoiled rich slob. This is accompanied by the film's surprisingly catchy theme song, which evokes both the 1970s disco era and the opening to a 1980s TV sitcom. Speaking of 1980s sitcoms, this was Michael J. Fox's first theatrical film, though it appears he hasn't quite earned his J yet. Incidentally, Sunshine's dark nipples here under her tube top is the closest horny teenage boys will get to seeing any actual nudity, which might go a long way to explain why Midnight Madness grossed under $3 million at the box office, while Porky's raked in well over $130 million. Candy and Sunshine reached their final recipient, Adam Larson, played by David Naughton. This was 1 year before An American Werewolf in London, so up to this point in his career, Naughton was best known for his stint as Dr. Pepper's dancing spokesman for their I'm a Pepper advertising campaign. The girls interrupt Adam as he's counseling a freshman who everyone will recognize as the awkward Jewish kid from any number of film and TV shows, despite the fact that the actor himself only has 4 credited IMDb appearances. He's such a stereotype that the only thing missing is an asthma inhaler.
Who's it from?
He prefers to remain anonymous at this time.
Adam is obviously the film's principal protagonist because he's the only one who gets to ask what the envelope is about. Intrigued, Adam follows the envelope's instructions and arrives later at an apartment where he's greeted by the smiling Candy and Sunshine. Come on, Adam, you've lived in Los Angeles your entire life and you don't recognize a cult when you see one? You better hope that it's more Children of God and less Manson family. The girls seat him next to the 4 stereotypes from the beginning of the film. From left to right, we have Wesley, played by Eddie Deezen, who appeared as every nerd in every movie and TV show ever, except, inexplicably, none of the Revenge of the Nerds films. Nerd! Deezen also went on to inspire and play the recurring character of Gibby Norton on What's New Scooby-Doo. I had to work in Scooby-Doo somewhere. Next to him is Donna, played by Maggie Roswell, best known as the voice of all the mothers in The Simpsons who weren't Marge. To Adam's right is Harold, the film's principal antagonist. Harold was played by the late Stephen Furst, best known as Flounder from Animal House.
Oh boy, is this great!
And finally to Adam's left is Levitas, played by Brad Wilkin, who despite looking like any number of teen actors from the 1970s, only went on to have 3 other acting credits according to the IMDb. Once assembled, the group finally meets the sender of the mysterious envelopes, Leon.
Leon! Leon!
Please, hold your applause.
It's a little known fact that Ron Jeremy's back hair went on to have a successful acting career of its own. Leon explains the purpose of their meeting. He challenges the 5 of them to assemble teams to compete against each other in a game he calls the Great All-Nighter, an elaborate scavenger hunt taking place all over Los Angeles, wherein the competitors follow a series of clues, with the winner being the first to reach the finish line at a secret location. As expected, none of the invitees are interested in participating, but Leon seems to have anticipated their response and is unconcerned.
Girls, do you think I would have spent a year designing this game without taking every possibility into account? Those 5 team captains were selected after months of careful research. Believe me, by Friday night, every one of them will be dying to play.
And with that smile, he's also apparently on any number of sex offender registries. We're then shown a series of events displaying the rivalries between the potential teams. First, we have the jocks assaulting the nerds, then the jocks assaulting the sorority during a freshman rush party. Incidentally, one of the film's running jokes is how these 2 large twins constantly giggle like a dolphin having its genitals crushed in a helium balloon factory. Adam, meanwhile, is again counseling the awkward freshman from earlier.
Anna was gonna camp out on the teacher's porch, but my mother said the night air would be bad for my asthma.
Ah, there's the inhaler. I wonder if we'll get a scene later where he tosses it away in a moment of confidence. The freshman, whose name is Flinch, is counseled by Adam to go out and get laid in order to increase his self-esteem. Being a Disney film, they never actually say that, but by telling the kid to find a date, that's pretty much the subtext. Overhearing Adam's advice is Laura, played by Deborah Klinger, who, like so many others in this film, went on to have only 3 or 4 subsequent acting credits.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, Laura.
Laura is clearly Adam's love interest in this film because that's what that goofy music means. She urges Adam to accept Leon's challenge, though how she found out about it is anyone's guess. As much as she argues the Game Master's case, Leon probably slipped her a bribe to convince Adam to participate. Adam relents and Laura is the first to join his team. At his father's mansion, Harold is lounging around with his crew, Barf and Melio, who are essentially Lenny and George from Of Mice and Men, Lucille, Harold's bitchy girlfriend, and Blade, a taciturn Hispanic who is almost always shown displaying a switchblade. Another running gag will be Lucille berating Harold for his weight, demanding he stick to a rigid diet.
Lucille? Rosita! Rosita!
Oh look! Another stereotype! Harold is soon confronted by his father, who demands that his rotund son enter Leon's game because he's tired of Harold being upstaged by Adam, who he clearly admires and probably wishes was his own son. Wait a minute. Where have we seen this scene before?
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Adam is still assembling his own team and means of transportation. In this case, Marvin. No, not that one. This Marvin is a car fanatic Adam convinces to join the game by making fun of his vehicle.
I mean, now that I think of it, we need to find someone with a really hot car.
Hey, what do you mean? No thanks, Adam. I was planning to work on my Jeep all weekend.
No, that's a Toyota Land Cruiser.
What do you call this?
Oh, your Jeep?
Land Cruiser.
Hey, my Jeep can outclass any new car on the road.
What kind of car nut doesn't know what his vehicle is? It says Toyota right there.
Pick you up on Friday, 5 o'clock.
Hopefully he'll figure out what kind of car he has by then. Marvin is played by David Damas, who per the IMDb, can you guess where I'm going with this? Only had 3 or 4 credits after this film. Playing a character in Midnight Madness seems to have the same effect on your acting career as being an asshole on social media. Harold already has his vehicle, provided by his rich father, a souped-up party van equipped with a computer that will instantly solve any riddle given to it. Which makes you wonder why his father would buy something like that for Harold if the whole point of making him enter the Great All-Nighter was for his son to get a chance to finally beat Adam at something. It's starting to get obvious why Harold turned out the way he did. The nerds decide to enter Leon's game as revenge against the jocks, which hopefully won't end with a sexual assault. The jocks decide to enter simply to bully the nerds some more. This scene establishes the jocks' love of beer, in particular Blaylock here, played by the only one of the 5 to have much of a career after this film. Yep, that's Dirk Blocker, better known as Hitchcock from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The sorority sisters also decide to play the game to get back at the jocks.
Peggy and Lulu, how about you?
The night before the game, Harold hides snacks inside the van in order to deceive his girlfriend, but is caught by Amelia, who agrees not to tell Lucille. The following evening, Adam regrets having only 3 people on their team before he and Laura run into Flinch, who excitedly tells them how his mother set him up on a blind date. Adam and Laura are happy for the freshman until they see the girl in question.
Yeah, you're coming with us. Come on.
They quickly usher Flinch away, telling him he's coming with them and that he'll thank them later, ditching that poor girl. Ladies and gentlemen, the film's hero. The teams assemble in front of Leon's apartment building and given matching t-shirts, which also happen to coincide with their vehicle colors. Keep it in your pants, Harold. The shirts the jocks wear are already cut up or torn, which means either Leon knew how each one would prefer to have their outfits personalized, or they mailed their shirts right there in front of him after the girls handed them out. The teams are given the first clue.
The C is reversed. SS Itari is mixed up and blind.
And they immediately rush off. A montage shows 4 of the teams deciphering the first clue successfully, implying that the beer-addled jocks are just as clever as the nerds. However, while the clue is deciphered correctly, each team interprets the answer differently and head in opposite directions. In a surprisingly empty street for Los Angeles. The blue team, meanwhile, is still back at the starting gate as Harold demonstrates how most work computers will actually be used by their operators. After entering the clue, the computer immediately spits out the answer, as well as the correct interpretation, sending Harold's team to the Griffith Park Observatory. Back at Leon's apartment/mission control room, the stage is set for one of the film's many subplots. The angry landlady who threatens to evict Leon and the girls over noise complaints.
You know what I have here? Your eviction papers. And I intend to use them if I hear one more complaint about you. So you just better watch your step. You pervert.
Sure, she's awful, but she does kind of have a point. Nobody likes noisy neighbors. And as we'll see through the course of the film, being a noisy neighbor is the least of the disruptions Leon's game causes innocent civilians. The rest of the team soon decide they may not have arrived at the correct interpretation of Leon's first clue. Look, teenage boys! Boobs! Oh wait. Never mind.
36, 37, 38. Let's say this starts exactly 38 feet from the corner. It's the 22nd from the east and the 23rd from the west. You guys think that means anything?
Perhaps it's in code.
Who produced this film again?
I wonder if Peggy and Lulu are having any better luck.
What can I say? I need someone new, someone who's not.
Adam's team finally works out the clue's real answer and head to the observatory where they pass Harold's team racing toward the next clue. They head inside to look for the telescope and panic after learning the green team is right behind them, again implying that jocks are not only as smart as they are, but possibly smarter than the nerds and sorority sisters, since neither of those two have solved the clue correctly by this point. At the telescope, Adam is blocked by a bratty fat kid whose father thinks he's studying Venus, but instead is committing an act of sexual deviancy. Again, had a different studio produced this film, the camera would have shown the woman's naked breasts, but instead we get this joke.
If I'm lucky, I may be able to get a view of Venus's 2 moons.
Venus doesn't even have 1 moon. No! Hearing the jocks trashing the place, a running theme, Adam gets desperate before noticing the telescope is pointed in the opposite direction of Venus.
Well, son, you want to let me have a look?
Dad, let's go look at the magnetic exhibit.
Magnetic exhibit.
Hey, Flinch. Remind me to bring you back here when we have more time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the film's hero. Adam finds the next clue and resets the telescope to its earlier position when confronted by the green team, allowing that poor woman getting undressed to have a third set of eyes invade her privacy. Ladies and gentlemen, the film's hero. Back at Leon's apartment, the noise attracts 3 angry neighbors, led by Mr. Thorpe, demanding to know what's going on. The trio soon find their anger replaced by curiosity upon learning about Leon's game and become willing spectators. Candy and Sunshine better be careful not to upset Mr. Thorpe, because he doesn't exactly have the best track record with women.
Everybody keep back! I'll kill her! I'll kill her! No!
Harold's team arrives at the location of the next clue, a piano museum, and we wouldn't have a fat character stereotype if he didn't take an opportunity to gorge himself. Confronted by his girlfriend, Harold quickly hides his marshmallows under the computer keyboard. There's Blade and his switchblade again. Why exactly is he a character? The yellow team is stopped in traffic where Marvin notices Adam's younger brother Scott waiting at a bus stop, apparently prepared to run away from home. With their parents out of town, Adam decides to take Scott with them as they finish the game.
Hey, Scott. What are you doing out here? Trying to get me in trouble? I'm responsible for you. San Francisco?
No lines for you, Michael J. Fox. Distraught for not being able to find the clue, Harold is tormented by Barf and Melio, who are easily the best characters in this film. Lucille discovers the clue in the form of a series of musical notes, and they leave the museum. They run into Adam's team, who are once again inexplicably barely ahead of the football jocks, with the nerds and sorority sisters nowhere to be found.
Come on, we better hurry.
Aren't you coming, Scott?
This game is stupid. Who cares about it anyway?
Michael J. Fox's very first line in a feature film, and delivered with all the gravitas of an after-school special about bullying. Back at the van, Harold discovers a 1970s-era computer with no cooling system isn't the best place to store marshmallows. Best character in this film. Back at the museum, the rest of the teams are looking for the clue, which is discovered by the jocks, who let slip to everyone that the next clue is at the Pabst Brewery.
The next clue must be at the Pabst Brewery!
The scene then immediately cuts to the jocks outside the brewery, with Adam's team close behind, but not before Adam gives another do as I say, not as I do pep speech to Flinch about the need for confidence. Somehow the sorority sisters find themselves far behind, and make the mistake of stopping next to a carnival, prompting Peggy and Lulu to hop off the truck. And no, I didn't just give them fat girl names. That's actually what their characters are called. Without his computer and relying on his friends, oh look, Blade with his knife again. Harold has little chance at winning the game.
Hey, Barf, have you unscrambled those letters yet?
Fag of beefy? A fag of beefy. Emilio, a fag of...
Shut up!
I hope I didn't have to censor that line.
Emilio. Fag of beefy.
The green and yellow teams each join a tour group hoping to find the next clue, with Blaylock recreating his favorite scene from Batman 1989, while Scott decides to commit a misdemeanor.
Hey, mellow out.
Why, if I was paid enough to have a speaking role, I'd really give you a piece of my mind, kid. Scott's stupidity gets Adam's team thrown out of the brewery. Or at least, out of part of it, because they still seem to be in the brewery because that's where they see the next clue. Security not doing their job properly becomes a bit of a theme in the latter half of the film. The yellow team quickly solves Leon's clue and head to the next destination, while Harold's crew pointlessly tries to repair their computer. A switchblade is an essential tool for repairing PCs, which is why you never want to mouth off to any of the guys from Geek Squad.
There they are.
While looking for Blaylock, the green team easily accesses areas normally closed to the public, presumably because security is too busy tossing underage drinkers into their warehouse. Even Willy Wonka knew you're not supposed to contaminate your product like that. Blaylock, meanwhile, ended up where we all probably knew he would.
Jeez, I gotta take a leak so bad I can taste it!
Just kidding. Back at Leon's apartment, more angry neighbors are quickly absorbed by the game.
Emilio, wake up! Are there any cookies left?
No, Harold, there aren't any cookies left.
Harold, you big fat sneak! I can't trust you for 5 minutes. It's a good thing you have a good friend like Emilio to help you to stay on your diet.
Best character. Seeing Adam's team, Harold decides to follow them to the next clue, while the red team... Damn it! While the red team encounter a snotty tow truck driver preparing to haul their illegally parked truck away, which is nothing that committing a felony can't solve. At the knockoff Bob's Big Boy restaurant location of the next clue, blue team sabotages the yellow team's Land Cruiser, concluding the entire character arc of blue team's Blade, because he literally does nothing else in the entire film other than to confirm some awful ideas our grandparents had. Did the nerds try to steal beer and get tossed into the warehouse at the brewery too? The clue is on the dinner menu at the restaurant's entry. Between the piano museum board, the comic strip painted on the beer cans at the brewery, and now this menu, how much did Leon spend in bribes to get the employees at these places to let him deface their property? Maybe if Leon didn't waste his money on the great all-nighter, he could have had afforded an apartment that wasn't a rat hole.
What I want to know is, what does Leon mean by 2 giant melons?
This is literally the most sex shown in this teen sex comedy.
Miss!
The necklace!
She's actually lucky because if this wasn't Disney, there's no way she'd have made it out of that scene with her top on. The teams, minus the jocks, all learn of the next clue, hug me, and make a quick exit. Harold is stopped by Lucille, who demands he buy her a fat Johnny doll because it reminds her of him. Believe it or not, this actually pays off eventually. The yellow team quickly solves the clue, which would send them to a miniature golf course, but before they can leave, they discover Harold's sabotage.
Sabotage.
Still determined to win, they split up.
Laura, will you watch the Jeep until Marvin gets back?
Toyota Land Cruiser. Damn it! The jocks finally find their missing friend, and also some more blatant product placement. Laura and Scott have a touching moment where she learns that Adam forgot Scott's birthday, which explains why he's so angry at Adam. Because little brothers are just like wives and girlfriends when you forget their special day. Adam and Flinch try to hitch a ride. Is that Christine? Oh no, it's just driving Miss Daisy. Back at subplot number 7, Leon is once again confronted by his angry landlady who decides to evict him. But, as all his neighbors are in the apartment enjoying themselves, she has no reason to and leaves in a huff. Adam, frustrated, seems ready to throw in the towel. Flinch is shocked and tells Adam his never say die attitude was always his inspiration. Determined to break Adam out of his funk, Flinch does the only sane thing by chucking his inhaler out of the window. I told you, didn't I? No nerdy asthmatic completes his character arc without losing their inhaler because only confidence defeats COPD. Putting that 1970s collar to good use, Flinch stops a car with 2 unaccompanied young girls in it, and since this is Los Angeles, they're perfectly fine with a total stranger taking over the wheel and driving to an unknown destination. Harold's team arrives at the miniature golf course and takes their envelope. And only their envelope, which strikes me as odd. Harold has been playing dirty throughout the course of Leon's game, so you'd think he'd grab all the envelopes and tear them up to sabotage the other team's chances. Case in point, the clue says for the team to play a round of golf but not to go straight to the 18th hole, which Harold, of course, does anyway. The green team, far behind the others, has a moment of luck as they stumble upon the blue team's van while looking for a place for the inebriated Blaylock to vomit. Considering how much alcohol is in his system, they should be looking for a remote ditch to dump his lifeless body before going home to rehearse whatever lie they would be telling the police the next day. Closely behind the green team are Adam and Flinch, who takes a moment to give the 2 girls his phone number, which will make things much easier later when they report the carjacking. They are also immediately joined by the rest of their team, making the whole hitchhiking thing completely pointless. Despite arriving first, the blue team is sent back to the beginning of the course because of their cheating and are now stuck in line behind another group. Because Hispanic people always have big families, right? Hey, stereotypes! That's 3 negative Hispanic stereotypes so far. Did the writers of Midnight Madness specifically dislike this particular ethnic group, or is this just a product of the casually racist era in which the film was produced? While playing their round, Scott tries to help his older brother with the game, but Adam acts like a complete douche.
Scott, why do you persist on making my life miserable? Will you please just stay out of my way?
What exactly does Laura see in him anyway? Oh yeah, the nerds are in this movie too, because the jocks have to have someone to pick on. No! They push through the white team, throwing Wesley's ball into the water, and are the first to discover the next clue. Where in the hell did the nerds get those waiters? As they leave, they're seen by the red team, who quickly decide to follow.
That's it!
What?
The secret to this clue is the word initially. You have to look at the initials of the words.
Laura deciphers the clue they picked up at the golf course, but the yellow team are again stymied by the blue team's earlier sabotage as they run out of gas. The white team discovers the meaning of the rest of the clue, which is then delivered by Leon hijacking the airport radio system. Which is adorable when you consider 20 years later, anything coming close to disrupting the smooth running of a major airport would result in any number of federal agencies coming down on you like a ton of bricks. Once in the airport, the teams are met by Leon's agents dressed as what's supposed to be Hare Krishnas, a religion most of us are only aware of because at one time they were the go-to cult to have in films. You know, before Scientology.
Come on. Blade, will you come on?
This one joke may be the only reason the character of Blade was included in the film in the first place.
Adam, there's something I want to talk to you about.
Yeah?
It's about your brother. Adam, he's not such a bad kid once you get to know him.
Scott? You haven't been living with him for 15 years like I have.
Laura takes a moment to try and get Adam to treat his brother better, but Adam has a point. Laura has only seen Scott this one night while Adam grew up with him. Those of us with younger siblings know quite well how they treat us when no one else is watching. After finally seeing Leon's face on the cult's flyers, the teams find the next clue in color-coordinated storage lockers. Again, begging the question as to what kind of contacts Leon has where he's allowed to paint airport property.
Will you give me that?
Okay, as dumb as much of this film is, there are plenty of little moments of pure gold like that one. The teams are presented with some Polaroid photos and a red ball as their next clue.
I'm a pepper, he's a pepper, she's a pepper, we're a pepper, wouldn't you like to be a pepper too?
The yellow team is first to arrive at the next destination, Pinball City. Can you imagine what anyone involved in the making of Midnight Madness would have had to say if you told them at the time of production that apart from the kid they cast to play Adam's brother, the goofy guy they hired for the arcade clerk would go on to have the biggest career out of all of them? A bearded lady fortune machine directs them to play a video game which I can't help but feel looks familiar. Believe it or not, Starfire was an actual 1980s video game and despite being an obvious ripoff, was never sued by Lucasfilm. The yellow team each takes a turn and fails. Seeing Scott laughing, Laura asks, "What's so funny?" Adam's brother tells her he's an expert at that video game, so she immediately pushes him to show them. Scott easily beats the game, revealing the finish line location. The Westin Bonaventure Hotel. Obsessed with winning, Adam rushes out the door without even thanking his brother. Ladies and gentlemen, the film's hero. This time, justifiably upset at being ignored, Scott ditches the yellow team. Laura, Marvin, and Flinch decide to bring Scott back, but Adam chooses to abandon his little brother in favor of finishing the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the film's hero. The red team also beat the Starfire video game while being watched by the green team, who for some reason, this time, decide to use their jock bully skills to stop the red team from advancing, and the arcade erupts in pandemonium. Sitting alone on a bench, Scott's brooding is interrupted by Harold and the blue team. This illustrates another issue in Midnight Madness. The Los Angeles this film is set in has to be roughly the size of a small Midwestern town for the teams to constantly cross paths. In a fit of pique, Scott approaches the blue team to inform them of the location of the finish line. Back at Leon's control center, the evil landlady has brought the police and demands Leon's arrest. On what charge? Who knows? Adam, meanwhile, returns to his team in order to search for Scott. There's no explanation given for his change of heart, but I'm guessing it's because he really wants to score with Laura. Scott, under the blue team's duress, for some reason decides not to give them the information he literally just offered.
Come on, kid. You were gonna tell us where the finish line is. You don't owe your brother anything.
Melio makes a good point, Scott. Scott still doesn't talk until Harold uses the tried and true interrogation method employed by big brothers everywhere. Good thing Scott spilled the beans, or else Harold might have resorted to noogies, or even the dreaded sitting on your face and farting technique. They toss Scott out of the back of the moving van, and for some reason Emilio throws Lucille's doll as well, which the camera very suspiciously holds on.
Scott! Scott. Oh, Scott.
You know, Scott, Adam didn't actually apologize. Back at the arcade, the other teams continue the rampant property destruction. The green team destroys the Starfire video game before the white team can find the clue, then leave and inadvertently destroy the red team's truck. My wife gets mad at me when I leave the parking brake on after driving her car. This is why, sweetie. Distraught over losing her doll, Lucille forces Harold to drive back for it.
Let's go back to my house for some coffee.
Okay. You know, there's just one thing that bothers me.
What's that?
Out of all the other teams, Harold's team's gonna win.
After all they've been through this evening, the yellow team seems surprisingly willing to give up, but fortunately they're back in the race after Harold returns for Lucille's doll. Of course, like everyone else, the police sergeant is more interested in Leon's command center, and not only doesn't arrest Leon, he has his men arrest the landlady instead. On what charge?
You big ape!
At least she didn't use the N-word. With the red team without a vehicle and the white team without the clue, they decide to team up. Leon moves his command center to the finish line to await the team's arrival and is accompanied by his apartment neighbors and the police sergeant, as well as the two deputies who drag the evil landlady with them. Despite the other teams already being on their way, Leon and his group somehow make it to the hotel first with enough time to prep his room. The green team arrives and immediately starts trashing the lobby right in front of the desk clerk. I used to work as a motel desk clerk, and all I can say is if 5 college jocks dressed like that, reeking of beer and without a reservation showed up on my shift, the police would have been immediately notified. Adam and Harold arrive within seconds of each other, but it isn't until the red and white teams drive their mopeds through the lobby that the desk clerk decides to notify hotel security, who only eject the sorority girls and nerds. Wesley comes up with a scheme to get them back into the hotel, but their covers are quickly blown and hotel security gives chase. The nerds run into the blue team, who hide from security in a maintenance room.
Shh. Cut it out.
Huh. I wonder why they decided to linger on that control panel.
Come on, you guys, use your pass keys. Let's check all the rooms.
The Westin Bonaventure Hotel has over 1,300 rooms. Using a hotel courtesy phone call, Leon gives his final clue to the players.
Look at the pool area. And I mean this expressly.
Hey, come on, you guys.
The evil landlady, meanwhile, manages to call hotel security and directs them to Leon's room. At the pool, Adam realizes the full meaning of Leon's clue and heads towards the elevator, followed by Harold. The rest of the teams remain arguing by the pool. Huh. 80 teens comedy, jocks, nerds, sorority sisters, a swimming pool. Ever notice that in every film that was ever made where people are tossed into swimming pools, everybody can swim? I only bring this up because I can't swim, and as a child, a terrible uncle of mine used to love tossing me into water over my head just to watch me sink. The yellow and blue teams ride the elevators and discover Leon's room number. But as they are riding express lifts that only stop at the lobby and the terrace, they're required to switch to different elevators to make it to the 27th floor.
Good morning.
Do I even have to say anything? Adam's team makes it to the new elevator first, and Harold is devastated but unwilling to concede, and he manages to make it to the maintenance room to disable all the hotel elevators, including the one hotel security is riding in on their way to eject Leon. With the elevators out, the blue team is forced to take the stairs.
But when we get to 20, tell me. I'm gonna throw up.
Trapped, Marvin finds the elevator manual override key slot, but needs some wire in order to access it, which Scott supplies. Ew! If I was Scott's parent, I would be really, really pissed off by this. Marvin gets the elevator working again and the yellow team celebrates. You know, I'm no mechanical engineer, but is that really how elevators work? The yellow and blue teams arrive on the 27th floor at the same time, and a desperate Harold holds Adam and his friends at bay with a fire hose. Just before he can go full Bull Connor on the yellow team, Adam releases the hotel security from the elevator, who take the blue team away. Adam's team enters Leon's room and officially wins the game. Later at the after party, the remaining teams put aside their differences to celebrate a hard-fought competition. The awards ceremony is interrupted by Harold and the blue team being dragged through the hotel.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to call your father.
Oh, officer, his number's 347-1347.
Oddly enough, that's a real telephone number and not the usual 555 prefix most movies and television shows use. Out of curiosity, I tried looking up the number for all the matching area codes in the Los Angeles area and didn't find anything significant. However, the prefix does match the city in which I was born, so it's significant to me. A spoiled asshole to the end, Harold breaks free from security and starts ruining the buffet for everyone else while his outraged girlfriend complains about his diet. Huh. There's a pool again. Domestic violence is hilarious. The movie ends with what passes for a steamy sex scene in an early 1980s Disney movie, followed by closing credits straight out of an early 1980s television sitcom. Oh look! He got his J after all. I hadn't seen Midnight Madness since I was a kid, and adult me fully expected to hate it. I had remembered the body shaming due to geekiness, obesity, and looks, but was pleasantly surprised that for a film of that era, there didn't seem to be any gay slurs or other LGBTQ issues, especially from the jocks. It was an okay film that's well-paced, and apart from the schmaltzy subplot of Adam and Scott coming together as brothers, I was never really bored watching any of it. Despite his later stardom, Michael J. Fox is actually the worst part of this film. He's clearly a year or two away from honing his acting ability, and most of his scenes are cringeworthy, both due to his performance and, admittedly, the dialogue they gave him. Fortunately, he's actually in the film very little. Not that you'd know from the images later DVDs and streaming services use for their marketing. They so obviously want to put his name on the cover, but probably can't due to contract issues, but that still won't stop them from making Fox look like the film's principal star. Then again, perhaps whoever decided on the marketing watched the film and realized that while Adam may have been the film's principal protagonist, he wasn't a likable one. For me, the highlight of Midnight Madness has to be the interaction between Harold and Melio. Melio may be one of the bad guys, but he seems more of a general-purpose prankster who doesn't care about the game as much as watching Harold suffer. It's also possible that I like those two characters because one of my best friends is exactly like Emilio, which would make me Harold in that scenario. While prepping for this video, I had planned on watching Midnight Madness by myself, but my wife joined me on the couch and she seemed to enjoy it as well. It's no Ghostbusters, but there are worse ways to waste 2 hours. In the end, Midnight Madness leaves a viewer with 2 unanswered questions. How did Disney think they could make a successful teen sex comedy without the sex? And how in the hell didn't Eddie Deason get cast in any of the Revenge of the Nerds movies? I didn't want to add this bit of trivia during the main part of the video, but from what the internet says, the actor who played Flinch was convicted of child sex crimes in the late 1980s, which makes this scene where he doesn't take no for an answer a whole lot creepier. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. There's more content on my channel, including other films that didn't age well, and a whole bunch of Scooby-Doo related stuff.